So, Ms. Tamar Ziv, thank you for joining us in the program. First, I wish we could do you in person. We could do an interview with you in person. And can I start off by asking you, why is the Israeli ambassador in Serbia in residence, in person there, and you are not in Kosovo?
Well, actually, Israel and Kosovo established diplomatic relations just about 2.5 years ago. The first step was actually to nominate an ambassador to Kosovo, and I believe that with time, we'll have an embassy in Kosovo as well.
Thanks very much for being here. Can you tell me what is the situation right now? What is the latest on the Israeli-Gaza, Israeli-Palestinian conflict right now?
Well, I think that we should not call it the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but rather call it the war against the terror organizations in the Gaza Strip, which is the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, which, as you all know, on the 7th of October, decided to brutally, barbarically, I have no words to describe the cruelty in which thousands of Hamas terrorists infiltrated into Israel, into civilian villages and communities, and in the most cruel manner, massacred families, massacred babies, beheaded them, killed old people, women, children, raped them, burned them alive. I mean, the atrocities are beyond imagination, and our war is with these terror organizations. They cannot continue to stay in the Gaza Strip on Israel's border.
Nevertheless, since then, since we had a report in this program from Dragana Solomon, who's the head of BIRN Kosovo, and reported to us immediately after the attacks. We've interviewed her. She's told us about those attacks, Hamas attacks, and how it felt like, and we've seen it on TV. The world was shocked, and Kosovan authorities did condemn the Hamas attack. But nevertheless, Mrs. Ziv, it has been 4 weeks since the 7th of October, and 9,061 Palestinians have been killed, according to the BBC, out of which 65% of 9,000 Palestinians have been women and children. When you talk about the brutality of Hamas, which goes undisputed, how well do you think these civilian casualties of women and children make Israel seem, if we've got such brutality happening from Israeli shelling too?
Well, I think we have to put everything in the correct context, because first of all, I'm not sure that these numbers that you have are accurate. I want to remind you that the Palestinian Health Authority is a Hamas body, and we have already seen that their reporting of casualties is usually far from being precise. So I don't argue with the fact that in this fighting there have been civilian casualties, and I must say that my heart goes out to any innocent civilian, woman, man, child, whoever who has been hurt, and that goes without saying. I hurt for the innocents in Israel and in the Palestinian people as well. This is not our goal. But on the other hand, you have to remember that the Hamas is a cynical organization which has no regard whatsoever for its people. And the more civilian Palestinians are killed, the better it is for their propaganda. They cynically use the Palestinian people as human shields. They erect in hospitals, in schools, in mosques, all of their infrastructures, their command and control centers. They put huge amounts of weapons there. They fire on our troops and on Israeli civilians from these locations. So the fact that civilians are hurt has a lot to do with what they're doing. And I want to remind you that Israel has been shelled by 9,000 rockets since this began, 600 of which have fallen inside the Gaza Strip and have hurt, killed, and injured Palestinians Palestinian people. Now, in
Ms.
addition,
Ziv, just a second. I want to just a little bit challenge the fact that you don't accept that 9,000 Palestinians have died, because international organizations, international aid organizations do accept this toll, because they say the Palestinian PLO health authorities have not proven to have lied in the past, and also that this is the number according to their data. Nevertheless, you dispute that over 9,000 civilians have died. What are your figures? What are the Israeli figures? How many Palestinians have died since the shelling in Gaza began from 7th of October?
I don't have the exact number, and I'm not disputing the fact that there may have been 9,000 casualties. I'm just saying that 65% of them are women and children. I'm not sure if this is a correct number. It could very well be that the division in the numbers is different, but that's not the point. The point is, undoubtedly, many civilians are hurt and have been hurt on both sides, and of course, this is not our goal. And as you also know, since the beginning of this, our spokespeople have told the Palestinians, please go south of Wadi Gaza in order to be in a safe zone, in order to be in the area in which the international organizations are working, in order to be in the area in which the humanitarian aid is arriving.
But the history of Israel, the Palestinian representative ambassador here has spoken about the fact, whom I interviewed before you, as I told you, he's spoken about the fact that Palestinians have learned the lesson of being ethnically cleansed from areas, settlements where today there are Israelis, and they've been ethnically cleansed in the past. Therefore, they see this request to move in the south as a request to ethnically cleanse Palestinians from very dense Gaza. Is that true? Is Israel trying to ethnically cleanse Gazans?
No, absolutely not. We have absolutely no interest in the Gaza Strip. I want to remind you that in 2006, we one-sidedly left the Gaza Strip, and since 2006, Gaza has been governed only by the Palestinians. In the beginning, it was the Palestinian Authority, and in 2007, the Hamas overthrew the Palestinian Authority and took control of the Gaza Strip and created a terror regime in the Gaza Strip. So we have absolutely no wish to stay in the Gaza Strip. After the war is over, and hopefully Hamas will be dismantled from its military and governance capabilities, the world will have to think together with the Palestinians what would be the best regime for the Gaza Strip, in which both the Palestinians and the Israelis will be able to live in peace, one next to the other.
But that's unlikely to happen, because PLO has spoken about the fact that they wouldn't want to run Gaza in these circumstances, the way it's been flattened out. Do you have any plan as an Israeli government? Does Israeli government have a plan what it will do after it imagines that it has eradicated Hamas?
Secretary Blinken is visiting Israel today, and in his press conference, he actually said that talks are being held in order to think about what possible solutions could be for the Gaza Strip. So I think that at this moment, the future of how the Gaza Strip will be governed or ruled is still something that is unclear. But what is completely clear is that we do not want to be the ones to enter the Gaza Strip and rule it.
Ms. Ziv, I would want to remind you that a little bit of a colloquial history here, which means a lot to the mentality of people watching you, watching both of us tonight. In the audiences of the public in Kosovo and Bosnia, we still remember a very, very famous historical saying of Vučić during the war, who said, "For every Serb, meaning Christian, killed, we will kill 100 Muslims." That's why the deaths of Muslims generally are seen as as much more easier to spend than the deaths of non-Muslims.
Please do not insinuate in any way that this is what we're doing, because this is so far from reality. I have to tell you that we are doing everything possible in order to not hurt civilians and not hurt innocent people. But the reality on the ground is very, very complicated and very, very difficult. And I think what should be done is actually to rid Gaza of Hamas. That is the right thing to do. Once Gaza is ridden of Hamas, then the area of the Gaza Strip that could be developed like Singapore or Taiwan will maybe be able to finally flourish. But they are under a terror organization since 2007. And the fact that this terror organization has time and time again challenged us, but this time opened complete war on us, is something that unfortunately has ramifications on civilians. And as I said before, we're very sorry for every civilian that is hurt. That is not our way.
I'm not pretending, and neither is anybody pretending we know how it feels like to have 200 families, 200, beyond 200 families with hostages still in Gaza, 250. And we will speak to one of these families next week. But nevertheless, isn't it clear to you, because for us it's not that much of a rocket science, that by creating this many casualties, by chasing Hamas to this cost, to having this much cost in civilian life, you are creating new generations of little Hamases. The people, the children who see the deaths of their families will vouch for being Israelis' enemies of the future. Isn't it obvious to you?
You know something? You could have said the same also for Israelis, okay? That the people, the tens of thousands of people who have been affected directly by this heinous terror attack on Israel could turn out to be little terrorists that maybe would fight the Palestinians. But this is not our way. These are not our values. We are a country of values that value democracy, that value freedom, that value peace. And these wars are actually put upon us, not something that we choose. I have to tell you that just before this terrorist attack, Israel was working very hard in order to improve the economic situation in Gaza. 18,000 Gazans entered Israel every day in order to work, to bring money to their homes and to be able to develop their economy and their welfare. In addition to other projects that we were working with the international community in order to develop for Gaza Strip. So I think, it's kind of a choice. If you want to educate your children to be terrorists, or you want to educate your children to be law-abiding, peaceful citizens. And, a people like the Jews who have gone through the Holocaust, in which 6 million of our people have been annihilated, we could have in potential, according to your words, become a land of terrorists. But that's exactly the opposite of what happened. And Israel is one of the countries that has the best contribution to the world in science, in health, in technology, in communications, in agriculture, in water management. We go in the exact opposite way.
Nobody is disputing that.
Decide that their way is the way of terror.
Nobody is disputing that, because without the contribution of Jewish people around the world, we'd have less culture and less invention. I agree on that, but that is not the topic of today's conversation. That's why, because of your the contribution to civilization, the world is rather shocked, or let's say we are, how in 4 weeks, let me give you another figure. 36 journalists have been killed in 4 weeks, and only about 50 to 60 journalists have been killed in Ukraine in 2 years. So your theory that Israel is doing everything possible to have as little casualties as possible is not even true regarding the deaths of journalists. 36 journalists, including one Palestinian journalist with all his family, died today. How do you justify this? These are figures from the Committee for Protection of Journalists. These are not figures from Palestinian Authority.
Look, this war is a very difficult war. The fact that Hamas has created an underground city, an underground country, under the buildings and roads and so on, is a fact. And if you want to hurt the Hamas, then unfortunately, there is damage that is done around. And I'm very sorry for any journalist who has paid for in his life for being able to report to the world. But the fact is that Hamas has dug so deep into the Gaza Strip that fighting Hamas and actually dismantling their abilities to continue and fight are very, very difficult. It's a slow process. It's a difficult process. Unfortunately, we're paying a very big price in casualties on our side for this fight. It would have been much better if this was a peaceful entity that would look to develop the Gaza Strip and not an entity that only is worried about and has its ideology for hatred, for massacres of Jews anywhere in the world, all over the world. They're the new Nazis, they're the new and worse ISIS, and the free world should work together, just like with ISIS, in order to annihilate this threat from the world. Because, you know, today it's in Gaza and tomorrow it'll be in Europe. So I suggest that instead of criticizing Israel for its fight against terror, the world would come together with Israel and help Israel fight. And thank God we have countries like the United States, like Germany, like Britain, like France, like others that see the situation as it is, and many, many other countries, by the way, and have been supporting Israel in its just fight to rid the Gaza Strip of Hamas.
Okay. Ms. Tamar, you speak about terrorist attacks in Europe that could happen. Kosovo recently had, almost a month and a bit ago, we had a terrorist attack in Banjska. And has Israeli, now we are at that subject since you opened terrorist attacks in Europe, has Israel condemned the attack of terrorists that came into Kosovo from Serbia?
Israel has expressed its deep condolences with the loss of life of the police officer that was killed, and of course condemns any kind of terror anywhere in the world.
But have you formally condemned it, like our government has condemned the Hamas attack? Has formally your government condemned it?
The formal was the fact that I wrote about that as a representative of the government. It actually, the attack was exactly on the holy holiday of Yom Kippur, which is the day in which nobody is on telephone, radio, the whole country is completely turned off. And on that day, I was the one who responded.
Probably the parallel is not due, but because I'm Kosovan, I want to point out that the international community praised Kosovo for not going after the entire village. The Kosovo police did not go and rampage the entire village because terrorists attacked Banjska. We did not either go against all the contraband routes, which are the secret routes that these terrorists enter, and the large amount of ammunition that came into Kosovo came through these routes where villagers live. So do you imagine what it would be like if Kosovo would actually apply the same method in eradicating terrorism of Serbia as you are using in Gaza to eradicate under tunnel places because Hamas is under tunnel to any cost?
You know, I think no country's conditions are like another country's. The reality in Kosovo is a unique one, and the reality in Israel and Gaza is a unique one, which is very, very different from each other. So I think that you cannot compare the way that the Kosovan police took care of this terror attack in the north of Kosovo to the reality that we have in Israel. I think every country deals with its problems differently.
When you say other 2 points I would like to just for you to address is that when you say that we can't allow peace to happen in Israel with Hamas still existing, on the other hand, you've had dealings as Israeli government has had agreements with the PLO, the Palestinian organization, which contains Fatah, and because we've heard a Fatah representative in this program, they said that, well, Israel could have dealt with us, not with Hamas, but they did not implement international agreements we agreed in Oslo. Therefore, what is your take on this?
That I completely disagree with that, because we at the time were willing to make huge concessions in order to have the two-state solution. And the last round of negotiations, which was at the time of Prime Minister Olmert, we were ready to give the Palestinian Authority 96% of the territories at that time. And unfortunately, we have, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. They were the ones that did not accept this offer for peace talks. It was talks that at the time were done together with the help of the United States and so on. So, to come and say things out of context is not exactly appropriate.
There's 2 other claims he made, that the history between Palestinian and Israelis did not start on 7th of October. He spoke about the fact that there are illegal settlers still in Israel. Illegal by the sense of by UN conventions, that UN has said that some settlements are illegal, as well as speaking about the fact that in West Bank there isn't actually a lot of freedom, maximum freedom or democracy and freedom of movement for Palestinians who get arrested. So what do you say to these claims that in the rest of Israel it's not like the Palestinians are absolutely free?
I don't think it's an issue of not being free. I think in the West Bank, the Palestinians inside their cities that are governed by the Palestinian Authority, especially in areas A and B, they are free to go in their territories wherever they want to. In the areas in which they come closer to Israel, then you have different arrangements for security mainly.
And what about do you agree that there are illegal settlers in Israel? Because the UN says so, not just Palestinians.
There are different settlements in the West Bank, and those that are illegal, the government is working in order to dismantle them.
But do you recognize that this sort of attitude towards Palestinians has led also to the birth of Hamas terrorism? Do you recognize that that is an effect of Israeli politics?
I'm not sure that we can say that Hamas was born specifically because of these issues, because, Hamas's ideology is something which is very, very extreme and talks about annihilating all Jews, not only Israelis, all over the world. So I'm not sure that we're talking only about what is happening in the West Bank when you talk about Hamas. Hamas, like ISIS, is a very extreme Islamic group which has its own ideology. And, ISIS as well was for slaughtering anybody who wasn't that type of Islam. And Hamas is for slaughtering any Jew wherever in the world they are. But I would like to take this opportunity in order to thank the people of Kosovo, from the president, the prime minister, the ministers, the different parties in the parliament, both coalition and opposition, and so many people from all walks of life in Kosovo who have expressed their support and their sympathy with Israel.
Tamar Ziv, thank you for being on the program.